Hi, thanks for joining my video. You know me, I'm Christy Brower, and I'm here to teach you tonight a little bit about getting a handle on your emotions and how that improves relationships. You probably know by now that I'm writing a book, and my book is about relationships for spiritual people, how to break the pattern of negative relationships and find your heart light. So this class is based on one of the chapters in my book, and I thought I would share it with you today. Do you remember growing up hearing things like it isn't ladylike to get mad or it isn't manly to be sad? Lots of people were raised with a belief that certain emotions were good and others were bad. So early in life, we developed recognition of emotions that were acceptable, and we learned to mask the emotions that are not okay. So I think the first thing we should do is find our own emotional limitations. So take a moment to make a list of the emotions that you see as good in one column. Draw a T on your paper. Make and good on one side, bad on the other. And make what are bad emotions. So we're going to talk through that for just a moment. I'm going to give you just a minute to write your emotions down. This is the place that we start, is learning to identify emotions. How do we identify emotions? Now, how you identify them are probably different than how I do. But let me give you an example of what my list looks like. My good emotions are happy, excited, frustrated, joyful, peaceful, and guilt. Bad emotions: sad, irritated, angry, depressed, agitated, and defiance. So if your list is anything like mine, it may appear in opposites. So the good emotions are the emotions that are okay to have versus the bad emotions, which might be their opposites, and yours might be mixed up. That's okay. But a lot of us were raised to see emotions in this very black and white manner, that some are good and some are bad, and that some are okay to have and some are not. What if I told you that this is totally wrong? Would you believe me if I said that all emotions are good? Well, they are. Emotions happen to us like breathing happens to us. We feel them. We can't avoid feeling happy, sad, angry, or furious. When we believe that certain emotions are bad, we stuff those emotions inside of ourselves. The emotion happens. We can't stop that. That part is automatic. But we try to control it by refusing to express that emotion. Has anyone ever asked you if you were mad? Did you say no? Were you boiling inside? Yeah. Stuffing our emotions is damaging in the short term and destructive in the long term. In the moment when you feel an emotion, you don't express it, you discount yourself. Sometimes you acknowledge that how you feel is not okay when you stuff an emotion. This translates to you don't matter. So, message received. Over time, you send yourself the message that you don't matter, and you begin to believe the message. You don't matter, so your emotions don't matter. Your needs don't matter, and your dreams mean nothing. You turn your attention away from yourself and you dive headlong into other people. They matter, their needs, wants, and dreams matter. This is the lie that stuffing emotions teaches us, and it has a direct impact on relationships. Have you experienced a relationship where all you did was give, and the other person just took and took? Did you put all of your energy into that other person? Stuffing emotions leads to unhealthy, out of balance relationships. So if you're a person to give everything to a relationship and receive nothing in return, then you're probably an emotional stuffer. You have convinced yourself that your needs don't matter. You will never find happiness in a relationship like this. You have to learn to unstuff yourself. The long-term impact of stuffing emotions is broad. First of all, emotions are energy. They are meant to be expressed. So if you stuff the energy rather than express it, it stays stuck inside of you. It still exists in there. This energy builds up, creates pressure, confusion, and pain. And over time, the stagnant energy festers and creates emotional outbursts. Sometimes those stagnant emotions come pouring out in an emotional outburst that you don't want, and then you have to try to repair the damage done by the explosion. For most of us, we reach a tipping point, that moment when you can't take one more thing. Like a balloon full of too much air, one more puff and pop. The person on the receiving end of the outburst may not even be the source of your pain. They just happen to be with you when the explosion occurs. Emotional outbursts damage relationships. When you blow your emotional baggage all over someone, it changes the way they see you. Other significant ways that long-term emotional stuffing impacts us is by damaging physical and mental health. Stuffing emotions creates imbalance in the energy body, which translates into physical and emotional illness. Have you struggled with thyroid disease, throat issues, heart problems, chronic upper respiratory infections, or neck pain? Do you struggle with depression and anxiety? Your body is telling you something. When I was in high school, I had a problem with anger. I felt like I was boiling over all the time. I yelled a lot, slammed my bedroom door, mouthed off to my teachers and my parents. Adults in my life were pretty stunned by my level of disrespect, and my parents were at a loss as to what to do with me. At the same time that my anger was boiling over, so was my stomach. I started vomiting on dates when I was a freshman in high school. I remember standing in my driveway with my first high school boyfriend. He kissed me, and I threw up on his shoes. There was no warning. I hadn't felt sick. It just happened. It was a reaction. I dated the same boy into my senior year. We went to all the school dances. I will never forget running to the bathroom to throw up in a formal dress and heels. It happened many. My parents were very concerned about me. We went to the doctor, but he found nothing wrong with my stomach. At one point, he suggested that maybe I needed a medication for anxiety. My mom was not comfortable putting me on medication, so I just continued throwing up on dates. Halfway through my senior year, my boyfriend and I broke up. This is when the vomiting slowed down and the anger started to mellow. I found out that he had been cheating on me through most of our relationship and that my friends knew about it. His parents were very conservative and they didn't like the girl he was cheating with, so he stayed with me as a cover. He pressured me for sex, and when I said no, he cheated on me. I was very naive. I grew up in a conservative religion in a small town in Idaho. Chastity was a concept drilled into my head from the time I was a little girl. I thought that I didn't want to have sex with him because it was wrong. It never crossed my mind that I might be gay. My emotions were so mixed up, I felt so confused, but I didn't express these emotions. I stuffed them deep inside. They expressed themselves through angry outbursts and throwing up on dates with someone that I wasn't even attracted to. After the relationship ended, I went on dates with other boys who didn't pressure me for sex. I was more comfortable in these relationships, so my emotional symptoms settled down, but they were not gone. I still felt nauseous when kissing a boy, but I didn't throw up anymore. In my early 20s, I made a friend who was a lesbian. The first one I had ever known, I rented my apartment from her and her partner. This is when the lights began to turn on for me. It wasn't long until I figured myself out. I told my friends that I was gay. They laughed and told me they knew. In that moment, I validated myself. I put myself in the driver's seat of my life for the first time. This is when the vomiting stopped for good. Years later, my mom and I had a good laugh when we both realized how naive we had been. Never had we considered that the problem wasn't me, but who I was dating. I want to talk also about guilt and shame. For most of us, guilt is seen as a good emotion. We need it to drive our morality. Feeling guilty is something we've done that makes us think twice before making the same mistake, right? Wrong. Guilt does nothing but make us feel bad about ourselves and question our worth as a human. We all feel guilt. This is part of being human. But expecting guilt and using guilt to teach us is wrong and damaging. What we do with guilt matters. We can't avoid feeling it, but what guilty feelings need is love and understanding. When you feel guilty, seek out someone who supports you unconditionally. Tell them how you feel and let them support you and remind you that you are still a person with value. If we stuff guilt over and over, it becomes shame. Shame is one of the most destructive emotions when it builds up inside the body. Shame erodes our sense of self and personal value. Carrying a stuffed emotional load of shame impacts every area of our lives. We give up our right to self-determination and value when we are full of shame. In a relationship, this leads you to give yourself away, allow abusive behavior, and stay in a painful, dysfunctional relationship. A heavy load of shame can also lead to avoiding relationships altogether out of self-punishment. Sometimes with emotions, we do a lot of avoidance. We are hardwired to avoid pain. Pain is a messenger that usually tells us that something is wrong. It is a natural instinct to avoid pain. The problem with avoidance is that we miss the message if we avoid it. Avoiding pain only prolongs it. You cannot run from pain, whether it be physical or emotional. The longer you avoid pain, the more pain you are in. If you allow yourself to feel each painful experience one at a time, that is less pain than feeling a whole lot all at once when it comes bursting out of you. Pain in the physical body often comes from dysfunction in the energy body. Return the energy body to balance and the physical pain can be relieved. I work with clients to release pain nearly every day. Learning to understand your energy body and how to release pain is the key. In the body, if we avoid it, we will eventually have to feel and express it, sometimes in a very large quantity all at once. This can present itself as a crisis of some sort, like a large panic attack, deep depression, or a medical crisis. Expressing pain as it occurs is the best way to avoid storing it up. I use a series of guided imagery, meditation, and energy healing sessions with my clients to release pain. Sometimes we really have to work on emotional honesty. The first step to emotional honesty is being honest with yourself. You can start small. Just admit to yourself how you feel when one of the bad emotions show up. Identify the emotion in your mind and start journaling. That's all you have to do, just identify it. Do this until it becomes easy to identify the emotion. When you think about it, when you think it without trying, you are ready to take the next step because you have broken your cycle of resistance. So this really matters with avoidance because over time, we begin to avoid our emotions. We forget what they feel like. We stop identifying them. And so suddenly, we never know how we feel. So emotional honesty really does start with self-identification of emotions first. Now you're ready to start saying the words out loud. So when you feel angry, say it. Tell someone, I feel so angry right now. It's not an attack. It is just a statement validating yourself. Stay focused on yourself and how you feel. You can't control how someone else feels. You can only express yourself. You have to take this one step. Will support you. You also have to remember that no one can make you feel anything. You feel because you exist. What you do with those feelings is what matters. Expressing your emotions honestly is something that you do for yourself. This action is not intended to get a reaction, change someone's mind, or to be right. This is just you validating you. Another person's reaction is their own to manage. So the key to emotional health is acceptance of your emotions. This is how you feel right now. It isn't good or bad, it just is. When you accept your emotions, you accept yourself. You shift your thinking from judgment about everything you feel to allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up. This is self-validation. Self-validation improves your self-esteem and trust of yourself. Feeling confident has a direct connection to the kind of person you are attracted to and that you attract into your life. Working through your emotional issues and balancing your emotional health will lead to better relationships. These are some concepts I'm teaching to people regularly now. I'm really excited about the work that I'm doing and the book that I'm writing. So I just wanted to share one of the concepts out of the book with you tonight. So thanks for watching.